Hello, friends. Hello. Welcome to Craft Your Joy Live. I'm Lisa Hetrick. Had a little hiccup there before I popped in live. It happens. Okay, friends. Today, first of all, it's raining out. So my lights are like super vibrant today because we don't have any natural light. But hey, we're here. We're going to have some fun. Had a brand new stamp set release this week with Gina K Designs called Season of Joy. And it has these really fun ice skates in it. And we're going to do some watercoloring and stenciling with those elements today. And I'm also doing a little bit of a faux masking technique. And we'll see if it works. Because in my head, it does, but you never know how that translates on paper, right? Okay, friends, I see so many of you popping in. Hello. It's good to see everyone. And thank you for taking the time to be with me today. All right, let's just dive right in. We've got a brand new stamp set. Here is the new stamp set release, Season of Joy, that launched this week. I'm just looking at my lights because it seems very bright to me, but hello. And this set is very well loved. You can see it's very, very well loved. I'm really enjoying using it. It's something that's been in the queue for a while, so I'm just kind of excited about it. And I'm excited to share some tutorials into the holiday season. I like to take my seasons kind of one at a time, but I know we are moving into holiday paper crafting if you haven't already started. And I kind of want to integrate this set with some of the other sets that come out this year, so I'm planning something for that. But this set just came out this week. There's a coordinating stencil. We're going to play with these two elements today, the coordinating stencil, and it also has a die option where I have a die for every single element in that stamp set. So it's kind of cool. So here's our inspiration for today. This is what, let me see if I need to pull in a little tighter there. This is what we're going to make today. I'm going to talk about watercoloring, and I just really liked this color combination, and I really just kind of want it to enter into card making for the holiday season, kind of slow roll into it, right? Like just really slow roll into it. Also, friends, I got stung by a bee the other day. One of those yellow jackets. It was very angry. I was in the garden. I got stung by a bee, so I can't get any of my rings on. So super fun. TJ, yeah, Kathy Z has got to create with this set. She's a champion skater. You know what? I couldn't remember if Kathy was the ice skater or a roller skater. And I'm going to have to ask her. We were emailing back and forth today about something else and totally forgot to ask her. So anyway, let's get started. All right, friends, today I am using a color combination that kind of has this retro feel to it. These turquoise, I don't have all the supplies linked down below. I ran out of time. I will get that in sometime after the show today. So I'm using tranquil teal. I also have sea glass here. I've got medium carnation and dark spruce. I have obsidian, and I have slate. So these color combinations today kind of give us this little bit of this 1950s kind of color look to it. So roller skater, TJ, you're right, roller skater. Okay. I couldn't remember, but I remember the story about it. I just couldn't remember. Everybody's sharing. I think she's a roller skater. Yeah. Super fun. Okay, I do have a card base. This is sea glass. No, not sea glass. And not tranquil teal. Okay, forgotten what it was, but we'll come back to it. A little bit of brain thing going. Okay, now what I want to do in the set, we've got the two roller skates, the two ice skates. One goes one way, one goes the other, right? You can use it. You could use one, you could use both. We're going to use both today, and I'm going to do a watercolor technique with them that I've done many times with you, but it is my favorite to do. So I think it's just kind of a lot of fun. Hi, Angela. Good morning from Maryland. I am from Maryland. Where are you from in Maryland? My daughter is a figure skater, so I'm excited for the set. Oh, I love that. I love ice skating. I haven't done it in a really long time, but we have a skating facility really close to me that's in like Reisterstown, and it's so there's like a lot of different ice skating things that can happen there, along with hockey, which is super fun. Okay, I am going to start off. There were a couple ideas I had with this. Now, you could stamp this with ink. We're going to get this whole one of the skates is up higher than the other kind of thing going, but I'm going to do this without masking, without getting out the masking magic and doing all of that. I'm going to do like what I'm calling the faux masking. Angela, Howard County, I miss photo scraps too, because as you probably know, I taught at photo scraps. Tracy, I understand, is doing really well with her business, going to different events and going and online. So, but I do miss the store so much. Okay, I am going to use a little bit of paint. I got this little bit of Stormy Blue, and friends, I just grabbed some paint before we went live, and I really just wanted a paint that was like a bluish gray, and then like I have this sea glass, this turquoise sea. Now you could easily do this technique with your stamping inks, but I'm going to do something a little different, because on this channel we don't always focus on all the different anatomy of making a card versus like different techniques. So, and I've done this technique a couple times. So what I'm going to do is I've got my brush. I have a number 6 brush round, and there's not a lot of water on it, but there is some water on it. I'm going to take a little bit of this paint and kind of get a good strength, good amount of that paint, and I'm going to paint it on to the stamp. I cannot see. I'm going to paint this onto the stamp. You could use your distress inks. You could use, if you don't have watercolor, you could use an acrylic paint, but water it down a little bit. And all I'm really trying to do here is I'm not going for like perfection and getting a decent amount of paint on there. I'm going to use this as my stamping ink, and then it's going to be my painting, my painting paint. Holy smokes. My brain today. Okay, I'm just going to nest that right there, and see how I'm just putting it on here. I'm just kind of tapping, not really putting down a lot of pressure. I just want that impression to be there. And you can see that the lines aren't completely filled in. And that's okay. That's totally okay. Now I'm going to go in. If I would have put a little bit more water on the stamp, then I would have had a little bit more of a better impression, but that's okay. Now I'm going to go in with my brush, and I just have a little bit of water here, and I'm going to come around this edge. I might need to pick up just a little bit. I'm going to come around this edge and just kind of finish off that sheet. And then go ahead and finish off this part of the sheet. And see how I'm just touching what's here paint-wise. Just touching what's here just to kind of create my shape. If I would have used a Misty, don't you just love it when we go live? If I would have used the Misty, I would have been able to like maybe stamp it again. But that's okay. I'm just going around these edges. Real time, friends, this kind of stuff happens, right? And I just wanted to kind of shape out this little edge here since I didn't do such a great job of stamping it. TJ, we're going to do some brush dancing. We are going to do a little bit of brush dancing today. All right, I'm going to position this other one. the other skate just kind of down a little bit, and it's going to overlap with this shape, and that's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I'm kind of easing into today, not kind of being like super aggressive with all the things that going to try to achieve in today's live, because friends, it's been a week. Been very busy working on some deadlines and some products and a bunch of different things, and holy smokes, the days are just flippity flipping by quick. Anybody else feeling like that? Like, holy smokes, it's Thursday. All right, I'm going to put a little bit more on here. I need a little bit more paint on here. And then I'm just going to kind of turn this way. And just kind of tap, tap, tap that down. And hopefully I get a decent impression. And it's a decent impression. Okay, now we're going to talk about the areas that have overlapped. See these areas right here that overlapped? It's okay, because I'm going to use that paint that's there. I'm going to get my brush wet and just kind of go in. We're going to do a little bit of wet into wet. I've got my brush wet here, and I'm going to use the paint that's here, just kind of scrub it out a little bit and make it disappear. So I've made that, making those lines, some of that line work disappear. I'm going to come in, add a little bit of water here. Also, friends, if you have any questions along the way, I'm not so worried. Don't hesitate to just pop them in the chat. See how we're losing some of the detail of the skates where the two meet? I'm not worried about that, because we're going to go back in and add that detail. But what I'm really trying to focus on right now is just getting some water in here and kind of blending that out. Now, if you're using, you could do this technique with your inks and your stamping inks, because I did do that, friends. I did do that with the stamping inks here. And you see where this overlapped here? So this overlapped this one, but you weren't going to see it on this skate because we colored it in. Here we're going to be coloring it in, but just differently. Just more washy-ish and watercolor-ish. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more water here. Just kind of come around and kind of come up a little bit. And then go in with a little bit of this stormy blue. So this has a blue and a grayish undertone to it. Right here, I've got a mix of about like 2% milk. So pigment to water ratio is about 2% milk. I'm going to drop some in right here, and we're going to brush dance a little bit. Cleaning off my brush. Okay, good question, TJ. How come my paper doesn't warp? Okay, because I am using watercolor paper, and apologies for not sharing that. I am using the Strathmore Ready Cut watercolor and not using a white cardstock. Okay, so that's why it is warping a little bit, and it's going to, but it's watercolor paper, so it's ready to take the water. Let's bring this in a little bit. Just dancing around my brush here a little bit and moving that color around. Okay. Now, before I move to this side and just kind of work on some of those details, I'm going to dry this completely. So we're going to be going back and forth between wet into wet, wet into dry, and adding some layers of color up to build up some of that texture and dimension and contrast in color. And then we're going to use some stencils. So let's go ahead and dry this. You can take a peek. So my paper is warping now. But I really love how that stormy blue has come down to be really grayish. What's the weight of the paper? You think yours is too thin? So the weight of the paper, the weight of watercolor paper that I like to use is 140 pound. So if you're using like an 85 pound or something like a 90 pound, something lighter, you're going to end up getting a little bit of warping, but that's okay. One of the things that you can do if your watercolor paper it warps is to take a towel. It can be a paper towel, and like mist it a little bit, and then put your piece of watercolor paper in between, and then iron it, and then the whole thing will flatten out because it's getting a little bit of water in the fibers, and you'll be able to flatten it out. Sometimes I've also run it through my die cutter. Yep, with between two pieces of paper to kind of get that going. Okay, now over here, I'm going to go ahead in with this skate, and let's just get our layer in of color. Now, I have been doing this technique quite a bit this year, especially with the addition of stencils in the collection of stamps I've been sharing this year with Gina K. Right now, I'm just painting in some water so that we can prepare for wet into wet. And the reason why I keep repeating this technique is because it comes out different every time. Let's drop some color. And I feel like you get a little muscle memory when I repeat the technique. So I'm going to do a little bit of brush dancing. So and what I'm doing is dancing my brush around and just kind of coaxing that watercolor around the skate. Coaxing it around and letting it do its thing. I'm not so worried about some of the details that I've lost around my edges because we're going to go back in and add them in maybe. And I'm not worried about the actual blade too much because I'm going to use some Nuvo drops to get that pearly like look to it. And we will pull out some, there's enough detail there that I think it's gonna work. So let's just go ahead and just kind of blend some of this color around. A little bit of wet into wet. My daughter just came in. Hello. Hi, sweetie.
Hello. Are you live?
Yeah, I'm live.
Jeez. Sorry.
No worries. She just came in from work. Off to the next thing. Okay, so I've got this color going. Liking it. But before I start to go to this side and start working on another level of layer, I want to dry this completely. Okay. Because I want to come in here, but I don't want my two colors to blend together. All right, so now I'm going to come in. Paper is dry, brush is wet, picking up some wet pigment, and I'm going to come across the edge of the back heel of this skate and get myself a real hard line of color. Okay. Hello, Anna. Hi, friends. We have so many of us here today. Cleaning off my brush, drying it off. The brush is kind of wet, but not sopping wet. And then we're going to do a little bit of dancing with the brush to the edge of where I just painted and just kind of feathering this color out. So I'm using that concentration of that color in the heel, and I'm just doing wet into dry again, and I'm just dancing my brush out and just kind of feathering some of that color out. So you have dance, 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 sort of like a circular motion, a little bit of circular motion, just kind of feathering out some of that color. So right away, we've got definition happening between this skate and this skate. And I didn't have to mask. Now, the bottom part of the skate is lost its detail, but that's okay. We're going to be able to go back in and add that in. Now, what I want to do is I want to dry this heel. I'm really liking the level of gray that I've got going on over here, but look at that line right there. So I'm just going to see if I can just wash. My brush was clean. Just kind of swash, wash, wash, and just kind of brush that out. Oh, thank you, Anna. You're so sweet. You are an inspiration. Um, I feel like sometimes I share good things, but sometimes I feel like, Lisa, that did not work out the way you thought it was going to work out in your head. All right, we're going to go ahead and dry this, and then we're going to move back to this skate and try to bring the bottom of the heel detail back. Ooh, I love that. Look at that detail. I'm loving the way that looks. Now, if you're not using watercolor, for example, say you're using Copic marker or you're using another medium, you could do this technique similarly in that way where you're going back and forth, but you are probably going to have to mask off, especially if you're using like Copic markers, because you wouldn't be able to blend out that overlap that we got with watercolor. If you're using watercolor pencils, you would be able to blend that out. But markers, or even if you were using your inks, it might be a little more challenging to move that detail because once it hits that paper, it wants to dry. So, okay, let's go ahead. See, I do have some warping going on in my paper, and that's okay. I'm going to go in, and I think what I'm going to do is change to a smaller, more finer tip brush here. And we're going to come in with, my brush is wet, the paper is dry. I'm going to come in with a good concentration of this stormy blue on the tip of my brush here. And then I'm really choked up on the ferrule of the brush, kind of like you would be with a pen or a pencil. And I'm going to come in and just use the outline of the skate and just kind of draw the skate, the bottom of the skate kind of back in with the very, very tip of my pencil, brush. Let's add a little bit right here. And we're going to go full strength with this watercolor. So 100%, like 100% hardcore whole milk. So see, I'm just going to hover that edge with the very, very tip and then just paint that in. Eek! So we brought that detail back. It's a little, let me look at that. It may feel a little bit wider, but I think that's just an illusion right now in my brain. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and clean this off. And now I'm going to move to this side. First of all, I really like the amount of watercolor that we've got going here to create that skate. So, but I don't think I have enough here, but I want this to dry, and I'm going to work on that heel and just kind of mimic that contrast that I have here over here. But while I'm waiting for that to dry, I could just heat set it and roll. I'm going to come back in over here and do some of the detail again with our number 3 brush. Pick up a lot of paint. So brush is wet, paper is dry. Come back in, kind of hover around that heel, and I'm just using that very, very tip coming across. I might even come like over here and just kind of use that paint that I've got going, follow that outline, and then add 100% milk consistency of that color. But I'm going to do one more thing. Oh boy, cat's meowing. I'm going to take and clean off my brush, get it, it's completely clean. I'm going to lift up some of that color. Lift up some of that color. So we get a little bit of a distressed kind of look there, a little bit more contrast in color. It might be too late for me to do that over here, but I doubt it. Let's try it. Clean off my brush, and I'm going to lift up some of that color. So I'm lifting it up and out and away. Even though that watercolor was almost dry, I reactivate it, reanimate it. Oh, just popped out to praise my sister's latest painting. She's an artist. Oh, I'm so sad. That's wonderful, TJ. She's losing her sight. I'm so sorry to hear that. Friends, it's crazy what's going on in the world right now. Okay, loving the way that looks. All right, now I'm going to come back over. I'm going to leave this the way it is. I'm going to come back over and I'm going to pick up some more of this paint and then start from this side and just add in that detail. I could leave that kind of rustic looking, but I'm not going to. I want there to be some detail there. Okay, now this is a little bit wet still. I'm going to come in and just dry this off before we start working on that heel. Doing good. Now remember, watercolor, even though I'm working with this stormy blue, which is sort of like a Payne's gray, it's a really dark bluish black color. When you do dry it, it does fade back. So see how we got that nice little texture going in there and a little bit of light kind of since we pulled out that color. Super fun. All right, moving back to a bigger brush because I want to cover a little bit more area. Got a number 6, I'm going to turn my skate this way. I'm going to add a little bit, oops, I went in and added water, which is fine. I want to come in, brush is wet, paper is dry. I want to come in and add a little bit of color floating around that edge. I probably should have did that heel first before I did the bottom, because now I have this up. I might end up reanimating some of that color underneath, but whatever. I didn't do that, so that didn't happen. So I'm going to add a little bit of color here. Brush is wet, paper is wet, but not super wet because, so I'm just going to use what's here and kind of draw it out, brush dance it out. I kind of did a little boogery spot right there, but let's go ahead and blend that out a little bit. Brush is wet. Let's dance my brush a little bit and use the color that's here and just kind of, if it feels like it's too wet, I'm really hugging that line. Just take your brush and just kind of sop it off a little bit. And then just bring that color over. I kind of really like what I did here. Dancing my brush around. So see, we've got quite a bit of detail here on the heel, but more up a little bit higher. I feel myself nerding out, friends. So let me just explain to you what happens when I start to nerd out. Like, I forget that I'm live and I drop into this zone and I'm just like, oh, look at what's happening. Look at what's happening. I'm experimenting. And I forget, like, my brain is like working. And then there's part of it that's saying, hey, don't forget to explain what's happening because people are watching. Okay, like we've got a lot of detail on the bottom of the heel here, and then we have some on that upper part as it's like arching up. Let's go ahead and dry this off. Ooh, I'm liking this. Liking it. Okay, what I'm not loving, let's see if I can reanimate it, is this little kind of, let's just scrub that out. So I've got a wet brush. I'm just kind of dancing my brush around a little bit. Oh, thank you, Angela. So see how we've got that faux masked look? We definitely have dimension, right? We definitely have one skate coming forward and one skate going backward. You can absolutely do this with masking magic and mask off, but I did it this way, which was like the full-on faux faux masking way. And the reason why it worked, friends, is because I'm using watercolor. So I'm able to reanimate whatever shows up on right here and make it turn it into the paint that I need to actually paint that skate. Okay, let's go ahead and dry. Flip, 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 flip. Yep, we got some good dryness there. Okay, I'm gonna come in and let's just go ahead and also this paint, do you see, I've talked about granulation before, but do you see that there's like a little bit of texture right here? Let's see if we can come in a little tighter. Let's come in tighter so you can really see. Ooh, I zoomed in. Let me know if that's blurry. Because friends, I can't tell with my eyes sometimes. That's why I always have to bring my daughter in and have her look at it. So you can see that that paint has granulated a little bit. So this particular paint from Da Vinci is called Stormy Blue. I love it. It's a it's got like, yeah, it has 2 pigments in it. So, and it's a granulating color, which means when water hits the paint, when water hits a granulating paint, it separates the binder, the water, the pigments start to separate. So then you get these little tiny little granules of texture. And I just love that when it happens, especially with our one-dimensional, when I'm using it here in our stamping images that are one-dimensional and we're trying to bring them to life and give them texture and dimension by adding color. Okay, good. Everybody's telling me it's clear. Friends, I need to get some reading glasses. I have these glasses, which are for distance, but I need to get some up close and personal glasses. It's just crazy. Okay. All right, I'm going back in with my tiny brush, my number 3. I'm going to lift up some color, not a lot of water. So brush is wet, paper's dry. I'm really going to trying to get a good concentration of this color because I'm going to go in and I'm going to follow that line. So I am choked up on the ferrule of this brush really, really close, like I would a fine pen. If you don't feel comfortable doing this with your brush, you could do it with a pen. So, hello, Della. Popping in. And I'm just going to follow that line of the stamp as lightly as I possibly can, just to bring back some of the detail. I'm not too worried about all of the detail because we're going to be putting in these Nouveau drops. I don't even know if they make these anymore, but I found them in my stash and I was like, gotta use them. I also thought that the skate would be fun to like put some flock in it, but I haven't quite figured that out. How I would do that. Sometimes, you know, I like the quickest path to create some of these effects like you would with this. You just kind of find the tool that you like to use and then use it instead of seeking out like different opportunities. There's another pen that I just thought about. My brain just went, hello. That's a puffy pen that people use like to create snow. You could use something like that. That would be kind of cool. Okay. All right. Went in there and got some detail back into the skate. Now I want to go back around this edge and kind of pop back in the detail for the shoelace. TJ, wow, you have a steady hand. Today I have a steady hand. Yeah. I have a steady hand, but here's why. It's because I'm really choked up and my hand I've got a good grip on this, but I'm really choked up on the ferrule of the brush versus being back here. So if you're back here on the brush, you're getting like more loose feel to it. If you're choked up, you got a lot more control with what you're doing. And also the brush is a fine, a smaller brush, a smaller, more detailed brush. Okay, brush is wet, paper's dry. We're going to go in and grab a really good amount of this paint. If you're not comfortable, remember you could always use a fine line marker. Or like I have the idea of just leaving it be, but I feel like we need to put back in some of the details. So let's put some back in. And I'm just following the line of the boot. Just come up here and then just come around. Just very gently. And then, see, and that's enough detail to inform us of the shape. Now I just kind of went a little bit around that back end. I'm going to clean off my brush and just kind of feather out what I did there. I wanted some detail back in that top part of the boot, but I didn't want it to be like a super harsh line. Okay, digging that. Now I want to come in, I'm going to take the tip of my brush and just kind of see what I got going on here for my shoelaces. Dropping in a little bit of water and then just go do, 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 drop, drop, drop. And then just dropping a little bit of detail in. It's not completely accurate, but that's okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this side. Okay, so one of the fun things that you have seen me do in tutorials after releases this year is we've been doing, some of these watercolor. I just boogered that up. Watercolor techniques together. And we've also been using stamps to kind of build scenes to create watercolor paintings, which this could also be kind of like a really fun way to create a painting. So let me just double back. Angela, so you said that your daughter is an ice skater. You could do this technique and like do a little 5x7 painting for her, because the skates are really rather large, and that could work. So I really love the idea. Even though I boogered this spot up right here, I'm not so worried about it because we're going to add in some background. I really love the idea of sharing these techniques with you. I'm adding like some full strength color in here because I want to do the same thing I did over here. Clean off my brush and then just dance my brush around a little bit, just kind of blend that out. I really love the idea of you thinking about using your stamps for other things, other projects that you might want to make, and kind of encouraging you with these techniques that I'm sharing, watercolor related, kind of encouraging you to kind of step out of your box a little bit and think about other ways that you could use your stamps and create different kind of projects with them. Okay, coming in, tip of my brush, I'm just going to put it in this paint. Now, if you don't have watercolor at home, no big deal. You could use your inks, right? You could also do this with acrylic paint if you wanted to. If you won't get a lot of the same kind of transparency in color that you would with watercolor, but you could experiment, especially if that's what you have in your stash. All right, I'm gonna come around just a little bit right here. Just kind of add that back in. Loving it. Let me see. Yes. Oh, good. I hope that, oh, and she also loves to watercolor. Oh my gosh, that's great. She's in grad school, still competes and coaches. That's amazing. That's amazing. So remember, with watercolor, Angela, you just said she's a better watercolor artist than you. She may be, but you can be too. And we just did today with these techniques, we're just doing wet into wet, wet into dry, and we're using the shape of our skate, of the skate, to kind of be our guidelines, to kind of be our little bumpers, right? To help us work on the techniques inside of that shape. Okay, now, loving it, loving it, loving it. I want to come in and I want to add our background. But first, before we do that, I want to make sure this is completely dry. Okay. Okay, it's dry. Now, loving the way this looks. I got lucky today, friends. Loving the way this looks. We've got texture, we've got dimension. You can tell which skate is in the back, which skate is in the front. Now let's take it another step further. Hopefully, this is sea glass. Hopefully I have a little bit in here. Oh, I do. I just squeezed out a little bit. Too much. I want to do a little bit of a wet into wet technique and create kind of this flushed background that we've got going on here. This just, and I think it just helps create a pop of color around the skate, and it helps these two skates also pop forward. And again, we're doing all of this without popping anything up. We're just doing this with light and water and texture and watercolor and just kind of creating all these different dimensions. So first I'm just going to come in, we're going to start easy breezy down here and add some water in. And I am negotiating a little bit around the bottom of the skate here. Now remember, the watercolor, and it's okay if we get a little bit of some of that skate bleeding in. Watercolor only goes where the water is. So it's only going to go where I put it, where the water is. So I'm going to drop some in. Oh, that sea glass is sea glassy. In this particular watercolor, you can see it's not super whooshy. Kind of stays put, it whooshes a little bit. So I'm going to use a little bit of brush dancing to kind of coax it around into the water. Just kind of coax it around. And I don't want there to be like, so I'm just going to go back and forth here a little bit. We can use some of this water here and come up and around this edge a little bit. And just kind of move this around. Whoosh. Got that big pool of water. I'm going to add a little bit of the dark in, and see how I'm just kind of scribbling it in. Scribble, and this is the part where you're going to just have some fun with it. And it may look like super vibrant right now, but that's okay. Remember, when it dries, just going to fade it back a little bit. Oh, you know what, friends? You know what I have on the table here? Salt. Did this technique maybe 2 or 3 videos ago. I'm going to add a little bit of this salt in. We're going to just create a little more texture. I didn't plan this, but I just saw it sitting here. So this is just Celtic sea salt that I use when I bake bread and do all the things. I just grabbed it from the kitchen. And apparently it's just been sitting here on my desk since the last tutorial that we did with it. All right, I'm going to come in here. Just my paint is like, my water is kind of tinged blue now because we've done so much blue. So that's kind of helpful because I can see where I'm placing my water on my watercolor here. Let's just go around, add some water. You can see, let me tilt this a little bit so that you can see where the water is. You can see the water is just kind of around the edges of the skate. I'm gonna pop that in. Just pop some of this color in. Drop it in. And then you can see my paper's starting to really get warped too. Well, how am I doing on time? Okay. I'm trying to make sure I don't run over. We're getting close. I added that whole salting thing in there. Didn't think I was going to do that, but that was a last minute on the fly. How fun is that? All right, got a lot of this going around. Let's just kind of bring some in a little bit. Dance it in. Okay. Digging it. All right, I want to add just a little bit more like color right there. Just to add a little bit more dimension of color, a little bit more lights and darks. Adding a little bit of the dark color right up against those dark heels of that skate. And then whoosh. Let's just add a little bit of salt. See how the salt just, first of all, I got to take this off because it's starting to sweat from the lights. Look at that little bit of like oxidized, it just oxidized. It gets, the salt just works with the paint and it oxidizes it. So it's kind of cool. Now, normally I would let this dry, but I am going to force it dry and then take some of that salt off so that we can move to the next step. Oh, first of all, can't do that yet because, friends, we do have background in the middle here of my skate. So let me add some water here and just a little bit of color. So there was just a little bit of paint on my brush. So just to add a little bit of color there. Love that. Okay, let's try it. Oh, Anna. Ooh, burn your finger. Try to dry this so you can really see that. This definitely has that wintry look to it, doesn't it? Okay, let's take a peek. A little bit wet. Let's dry that. Love it. Okay, I had that sitting here, but I also did not have my little brush that I usually use. So I'm just going to use my finger and kind of take some of that salt off. Ooh, you can hear how crunchy it is. Oh, but it's just so fun to add that little bit of extra texture to, here, let's move that over. I could reuse that salt, but I'll probably ditch it. Look at what it did there. I just love that. It adds a really nice texture to it. Let me know in the chat if you've tried the salting technique with me or at all, right? Okay, this is fun. Now, before we go ahead and put, I feel as though all of our watercoloring is done. I'm saying that. So let's go ahead and put this on the cardstock here. So I'm going to go ahead, and because it's kind of warped and I don't really have the time to iron it out, this time I grabbed a tape runner. I don't usually use tape runners, friends, because you can see what I'm doing right now. I'm overrunning it with tape. I tend to use too much. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to open this and pop this on because I think it's going to help me get this flat, nice and flat, you know, edge to edge, because I've got a lot of tape on it. I'm digging that. I'm loving the way that looks. Okay, now let's go in with the Nuvo drops and let's see if I can draw a straight line with the Nuvo drops. So I'm just going to use the skate shape and just kind of paint it in, and try to be not super thick with it, but I'm using the tip as kind of my paintbrush. I could use another brush to kind of paint that texture in if I wanted to. I'm just kind of following the lines of the skate, the blade. I'm getting that in. I'm loving the way this looks. I think it turned out better than I thought. Turned out better than I thought it would. So this just adds a little poof to the project, which makes it kind of fun. Okay. And it's kind of like a pearly color. What color is this? Ivory seashell. There we go. And actually, I've had this for a while because I purchased this from my local shop when she was open. Photo scraps. I've had it for a while. Oh, Angela, I've ordered Gina's new silver sparkle gel. How do you think that would work on the blades? I think it'll work amazing. She came out with all that Rise and Shine and the new sparkle gel. I need to order some of that as well, because I think it'll look amazing on this. And I didn't see that prior to the release, and because it was a secret, and when it came out, I was like, oh, it's going to be amazing for a lot of wintry like projects. That would work really, really well here. And I've ordered it, so I'll definitely share that how it works, and maybe we'll do a tutorial with it. Okay, let's go ahead. I'm just going to dry this a little bit. A little bit. I'm only drying it a little bit because I didn't want my hand to go into it. That's why. All right, I'm going to take, I thought about using, so here is an additional technique, but I'm not going to do it today because I did do it on this card. I'm going to explain it, and I've done it on this channel, but I really like the way these skates came out with just color alone. Now, if I wanted to go in and add more intensity of that gray, like say I wasn't getting the dimension that I wanted to use, I could go in and use the skates. I don't want to lay that on there. Go in and use the stencil, and then use my brush and add a little bit more gray over top of it and really jack up some of that intensity, especially around the edges. And I really think the stencils are very useful to work with watercolor and techniques like this, because you can get some more crisp edges. So if you feel like your edges, you want them to be a little more crisp, the stencil can help you do that. TJ, great. She's talking about the sparkly Simon Hurley stuff. That's kind of cool. There's lots of sparkly things that are out there that you could try. All right, I'm liking the way this looks. I'm not going to go in with this stencil. I did have a little brain fart thinking about adding this little Nordic piece in, but I feel like I'm not going to do that because my brain kind of sees the way it will look, and I think I would have had to do that first, but I really kind of like that idea, so maybe we'll pursue that further. Okay, now I have pre-stamped some of the leafery elements and the 2 poinsettia pieces that I want to use here and just kind of finish this card off. And then we'll put in our sentiment at the bottom here. Let me just make sure that I got all that salt off. Angela loves using the stencils. I'm really digging them. Before this year, I really wasn't a big stencil girl, but I really like incorporating these stencils into the stamp designs and offering other things that coordinate with the stamp. So you've got you have coloring stencil options, and you have some backgrounder options and things like that. So yes, TJ, I did a tutorial using, I feel like it was the last tutorial, the tutorial before that, or I might have done it for the last 3 times. I'm not sure, where I've used the stencil, coloring stencil over top of the watercolor work that we did. Okay, let's just dive in. I just realized I don't have any foam dots, so yay, Lisa, for that one. Let's head in and grab my glue. I really did want to pop that up, but instead, what we're gonna do is just go ahead in and pop this little guy right here. And I really like this color combination. Medium carnation for my pink. And here's why. Because it's a cool color, but when you're using it with these blues, it really does give you that whole kind of 50s look to it. I really, really love that. I love Tranquil Teal. But here's one of the things that will bother me a little bit. And that is, let me take that little bit of glue off. I need to get moving. I like my die cuts to cut out the stamps, but sometimes I want a little bit of a closer edge. So I die cut it, and then I go in and I trim out this extra bit of white. And I usually will do this when I am nesting embellishments together. Let's trim a little bit more off here, give that a little haircut. So there isn't as much white showing. So there we go. Just kind of pop that right there. And I like to lift, just hold my finger down and kind of lift up these embellishments a little bit. All right, let's just go ahead and pop in some of the leafery. I'm going to pop it in right behind the poinsettia. Would have made myself a lot easier if I would have used some foam dots, and they're behind me, but I'm going to keep cruising. I'm going to keep cruising on this. I'm liking the way this came out. And again, you could change up these color combinations. Like this is a very wintry like color combination. It could be great for the holidays. You could put a holiday sentiment in there. I like using these non-traditional colors. Colors that give us something a little bit different than greens and reds. Although I do love my greens and reds. All right, I'm liking this. I think like another piece of an embellishment right here would be cute for the leafery, but I really like this idea of them just kind of being off the top here, and we get a little peep into where those two embellishments meet. Okay, let's do our sentiment, and then we'll bring this thing home. Oh, and I also have the pastel dots. I have the pastel dots, and I have, let's put some embellishments on. I've got these little snowflake things from Gina K. Love, love, love. Let's put a little snowflake right in the middle. And then the other card, I put little snowflakes all over it. But I think I want to put some pastel dots. Let's put some pastel dots. Just little tiny dots. I'm obsessed with those little pastel dots. I don't know what it is. Let's put one up here and see. Let's use some of these little light blushy pinks that I have in here and pop them on. Oh, I like it. Ooh, I like it, Ooh. Okay, I'm getting them stuck all over me. Let's pop one right here. The pastel dots, this is what they look like. I'm obsessed with them. I've been using them a lot. I like them because they're nice and flat. I don't like to add a lot of extra embellishments to my card projects because I like the stamps to be the star of the card, and whatever technique that we've used. I need one like right there. I can't find my snowflakes. I couldn't find them either. I finally got my embellishments wrangled into some form of a system. All right, I'm digging that. It's like, and then we've got this texture going on right here. This has definitely got, oh, a super duper wintry vibe. But you know what I just did? I want to put warm winter wishes down, and I put that embellishment down, so I think I have to take that off. I do. Way to go, Lisa. All right. Angela, I have the iridescent dots. Need this. I need to get the iridescent ones. I have a bunch of the other Gina K iridescent pieces, but she's got some new ones out now. All right, this is the make or break. I could really mess this card up because I'm going to go rogue and stamp my sentiment down. And hopefully I'll do a good job. Hopefully I will get a good enough impression of warm winter wishes. What is that? A little bit of something right there. I don't know. I really don't have a good feeling about this one. So I'm going to give it a little bit. I'm going to rock it a little bit and then give it a little bit of pressure. Okay. Not too bad. I did it. I did it. I should have got the Misty app. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? You know, what's the worst that could have happened? If I stamped that and it didn't look good, I would re-stamp it and then I would just die cut it out with the coordinating die and said, oops, that never happened, right? So, loving it. Just thought the stars are amazing and tiny. Yes. All right, I'm digging the way this came out. I'm loving it. So here's the original inspiration. It's good. But look at how flat, like now with what we know and how we built up that color and texture in that skate, then look at this skate. Not as much color and texture, not as much effort. And there's a definite difference in contrast, in dimension, and what's popping and what's not popping. We definitely have more of a 3D look with this. And then just adding that little bit of salt in there, I think just kind of made the background even better. Love it. Love, love, love. Love, love, love. Okay. Okay, friends. I ran about 4 minutes over. Oh, hello. I ran about 4 minutes over. Oops. I hope you really enjoyed today's card tutorial and most of all, the watercolor portion of the tutorial, the technique portion. I am super excited. I cannot wait to see what you create with this stamp set, but also with what we talked about today and what we learned together. Go back in your stash and look at other stamps. If you have other stamps from my collection, you know that I always kind of have this hero image that's a wide open stamp that you can, line art stamp that you can do a lot of mediums in, whether it be watercolor or stencil blending. So give this technique a try with some of the other things in your stash. And also give that masking technique, that faux masking technique that I did, a try. And just keep in mind that if you're using that faux masking technique, you need to do it with watercolor so that you can kind of hide that extra little bit of overlap. Okay, friends. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed today's tutorial as we kind of eased into this new release that happened this week. You can find all the supplies I will get listed down below in the description, but I do have a list and a link to the stamp set and those general supplies already down below in the description. And don't forget to grab the free card idea sheet for this new stamp set. You can grab that down below, or you can head on over to my website. I'm pretty sure I have that listed down below in the description as well. Okay, I will be back next Thursday with a brand new tutorial. This time we're going to be doing some mashing up. I've been talking about all of the stamps that have come out this year and how I've been intentionally designing them in proportion to each other, kind of leading up to some of these holiday things that were going to be happening. So we're going to do a little bit of a mashup next week. And I think it's either going to be with the piano stamp or with the violin and start to work our way into some holiday and winter ideas for that. I also have this autumn idea in my head too with this stamp set, so that might happen too. We'll see. Okay. All right, friends, I would encourage you, if you're at all interested, get on my email list. That's down below in the description. I always send out the link to the video and when I'm going live prior, just in case you don't see it in social media, because sometimes we don't see all these things in social media. Also, I'd love it if you join my free community. All the information about my community is down below in the description. It's craftyourjoylab.com. There's a lot of things that I post over there. It's very concentrated in watercolor. So if that's something you're interested in, that's great. There's a lot of lessons and things that are happening in that community. Okay. Whoosh. I got all of that. I cannot wait to see what you all create with this new stamp set. So I'm sending you into the weekend to craft your joy. And I will see you next week, friends. Thanks so much for joining me today. Bye now.